my neighbor was somebody I'd known through work, and she was teaching anthropology at the university, and she was having a guest speaker who she told me about. And I think her tagline was he lived on $3,000 a year in a house he built himself for $500. And being as I was heading back towards doing art, I figured that, well, it sounded good being able to build your own house for very little money. So I went to see the slideshow, and it was one of Yanto's slideshows, and Yanto was the person in question. And he was teaching a course that month, which was one of the first 2 or 3 courses I think that they had taught. So I went and took one for a week. I went walkabout for a summer, drive about, and got to the home of my father and his wife in Minnesota, and she's a baker and wanted bread, so I made her an oven because I just learned how to make ovens in the workshop. So I made her an oven. Then when I got to the East Coast and was staying with my brother, he wanted an oven, so I made an oven for him, and I started sculpting them, and I stayed in touch with Copco, and so the sculpture and the ovens took off sort of in one tangent. Well, the first oven workshop I did, at the end, one woman said, "This is just like the 70s," because she hadn't done anything with other people since the 70s, and it's the idea of sharing labor, which is no longer necessary, right? If you have money, you can buy services, or you can buy things ready-made, and you no longer need to make them. So making something with other people is sometimes a revelation. And, it's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to get money with other people. It's fun. So there's that aspect of it. The food is sort of obvious. Everybody loves pizza, and the pizza that comes out of a wood-fired oven is different than any other pizza because it cooks. First of all, you put it into a 700-degree oven or an 800-degree oven as opposed to a 550-degree oven. Second of all, it's a much more intense heat because it's radiating from all directions, as well as a live fire, as well as bricks that are 600 or 900 degrees. So it cooks in 2 minutes. And then, I don't know if maybe that means it's closer to live food or what, but it's a noticeable difference. And you can cook anything else in them. So people get excited about the food, and what's not to get excited about. When you build something on this scale, it's as big as you are, and all of a sudden it's like you're Michelangelo wrestling with a huge stone because you're making something on your own scale. And it's cool to see people who wouldn't call themselves artistic or creative get to the end of an oven building project and say, "Wow, I made this. It's beautiful." So we're talking about intabas. Mm-hmm. Well, the challenge there was we were building it was all permitted professional job for a restaurant. So we had to meet building code, health code, and run the plans by all the officials. So we couldn't exactly call it a mud oven. I was also a little concerned because as a commercial oven, it needed to perform at a higher level. So I had to think about materials some. But we called it a cast refractory clay sand oven. And it's like, okay. They bought that, you change the name, make it technical, anybody will buy it. I substituted crushed up fire brick for sand because it had more density and would hold more heat. And we ended up having to engineer the foundation. It's a cast concrete foundation with half-inch rebar every 6 or 8 inches. So it's a bomb-proof, earthquake-proof little table that we put the oven on. And then again, when you start to make an oven that's 4 foot in diameter, the shape of the dome becomes critical. And so I drew out an actual catenary arch and made a template so that I could scrape the sand forms to make sure it was absolutely the right shape so that it would support itself and not fall down. And and then it's got a foot of insulation. It's got a foot of thermal mass and a foot of insulation because on that scale, you want to make sure it's going to be as efficient as possible. So making a hollow shell in which to pour loose insulation was a little bit of a trick, but we effectively made sort of like wattle and daub. We made a basket and then mudded over the basket and left it open and then filled it up full of insulation from the top. And that worked. So those were the main challenges, but otherwise it was mud oven. I also know that when people work with their hands, they relax, their bodies relax, their minds can focus, all kinds of things can happen because you get out of your head. We don't live in our heads. We're not mental beings. We're beings who have brains and who think and who have mental processes, but those processes are all directly linked to physical processes. And if we aren't engaged with the world in a physical way, then we can't be, I don't think we can be mentally complete or whole or sane. Sanity is about health, and health is physical and mental, and the two are connected. And I see that a lot in working with kids. Kids don't know how to use shovels. They don't know how to use a hammer. And they're not comfortable with their bodies. They're not comfortable with the dirt. I got called into one school, and we were walking around talking about different projects. And schools never want to do ovens because it involves fire, and they're all scared of fire. And they think that, if you put an oven out there, a kid's going to have an unsupervised, dangerous fire. But I wasn't that excited about doing freestanding outdoor sculpture, and I didn't see a site that lent itself to that. But there was a brick wall that was really ugly, and I said, let's do a mural. So we did a mural on the wall, and it was a thematic mural, which was fun, and it worked. And what I've been realizing just lately is that, I grew up, my mom's an artist, my father's a writer, I grew up with my mother. She was making stuff all the time. She's got a quote in there from Aristotle. It goes, what we learn by doing. And if you don't make your own house, you miss learning an essential lesson, right? Which is how to create a space that's comfortable and that works. So, and for me, art's much the same thing, right? Art is telling a story. If you don't tell the story, nobody's going to learn how to tell the story. And if the next generation doesn't know how to tell the story, then who are they? They don't know who they are.
Okay.
The thing that is clear to me is that we're losing culture, right? We're not teaching kids how to make a culture. How do you make a culture? You have to be able to build a house. You have to be able to feed yourself and other people, and you have to be able to tell stories and entertain yourselves. You have to be able to function as a group. And